I'm very pleased that Yasmin Ahmed, another fellow who's been through this process, is going to talk to us about networks. So thank you, Yasmin.
Many thanks for this opportunity just to say a few words, firstly on behalf of the network and also on behalf of the emerging leaders who are on the National Leadership Council. We've got Claire with us today somewhere, and Emma and Oliver, who unfortunately couldn't join us today, but I'll be speaking on all our behalves. And I just wanted to start on, again, whilst we're reflecting, with some personal reflections of my own journeys. It was probably just under 2 years ago that I remember Emma Stanton coming up to me, full of enthusiasm, as she often is for those of you that know her. She'd just met with the Health Foundation and members of the National Leadership Council to see if they could then support Bambino with an idea that we had had. And for a long time, Emma and I had been watching, and we were very excited to see all these leadership development programs appearing across the country where we really hadn't had any before, but slightly concerned that they had been developing in silos and in isolation. And that there really wasn't any connection between one program and the next. And actually, wouldn't it be great to just bring all those people together into one room? And it was from that Bambino were able to move on with that support to do the first one of these leadership fellowship events. And it's absolutely amazing to be here again for the second such event and to have such an amazing turnout. And as the network picked up from the work that Bambino had done, we were really keen not to lose that momentum. So I guess just a big thank you to Piyush and Michael for making today into a reality. If I reflect as well as to why we felt so passionate about this event 2 years ago, I really see it from two different perspectives. From our own experiences, because we had both been on these fellowship programs, we had some insights into some of the challenges that no doubt all of you will have faced, and you've mentioned this morning already. So from a clinical leadership perspective, it's often a very new way of working, and you're often working in isolation, which most of us weren't really used to. And at the same time, we just weren't aware of other fellows who were out in the system, either in the same region or nationally, and it just felt like a really big missed opportunity. And the other thing that we really felt is actually, wouldn't it be great to have that peer support where we could all help each other get the most out of these experiences? Because actually taking time out of clinical practice itself was quite a valuable thing, and we just wanted to squeeze out of those every minute's worth of value that we could. And I think secondly, we realised that the programmes were very new at the time, and people were really only just starting to think about what next, what happens at the end of the fellowship. What's it going to be like to go back into clinical practice? And how do we actually take our learning and translate it into something very meaningful at the front line? And how do we make sure that this isn't really the end of our leadership journeys? And it just seemed that linking people together from the different programs would be perhaps one way to ensure that we could start to address some of those issues and ensure the sustainability of those programs. So we ran the first one of these events in autumn '09, and the turnout was just brilliant. We had representation from right across the country and from programs, some of which we knew about, and to be honest, some of which we met for the very first time that day. And it was really clear that there were some common issues, as we've heard this morning, that were from right across the different fellowships, and people really valued the opportunity to share those and discuss them together. But one of the main bits of feedback that we did get is that people actually valued just meeting each other, making those connections for the first time. And they really wanted to know why we hadn't done that before. A little bit more about me, I suppose. I've been developing and running leadership programs in the Northwest for the last 9 years now, and I've had a real privilege to learn a lot from that. And one of the things that I can say is I'm still in touch with the very first medical advisor I worked with, all the way through to the 14 Darcy Fellows that we had working with us last year. And for me, that probably reflects one of the key learning points for today, that this really is the start of your leadership journey. This is not the end. And my experience of those networks is not only did it help me with my learning, we could support each other to continue to grow. And actually, sometimes you're going to come across really difficult periods where you've just got a sympathetic ear to turn to. It's really helpful. And another point that some of us were really keen to make today is, although it feels like we're in a very difficult situation, both in the NHS and globally, from the point of view of junior clinical leadership development, there really hasn't been a better time in the NHS. If you think 9 years ago, when I first started doing this, I was pretty much alone. There were very few people who at that time could be persuaded to invest time and resource in leadership development for junior doctors. And after that, it was going to be at least another 4 or 5 years before I'd meet people like Claire Lima, who was a paediatric trainee, just thinking about setting up the CMO Clinical Advisor Scheme, or Emma Stanton, psychiatry trainee who had just pulled together a small group of junior doctors and medical students who were interested in leadership under the banner of Bambino. And Oliver, I just ran into him because he happened to be a surgical trainee who'd started to work with Lord Darcy. And he was starting to think about, well, actually, how do I get clinicians engaged and help them best to be able to prepare to lead? And what is amazing, I think, about these fellowships is they really do bring together people from right across the country, different grades, different specialties, different disciplines, and often they're people who wouldn't otherwise have met, let alone worked together. And I will always remember the first time I met each of those people, and many of you in the room that I know as well, because only a few years ago there were very, very few of us, and finally I feel like I've got friends. And those connections have been really pivotal in helping me go on to do more and more. So one of the things I'd strongly urge you to do today, and I know it's a really busy schedule, but just don't miss the opportunity to make those connections. Make sure that you make the space. Maybe even set yourself a challenge to meet 5 new people today. Get their email addresses, email them on the train home. It really is that simple. And on a much wider scale, let's make sure that we take forward all the connections and the potential that we have in the room today. I know that Piyush has started a leadership fellowship alumni group already on the network side. So for those of you that haven't joined already, do so. We've recently upgraded this functionality of the site, so you'll find us at a slightly different website address, www.the-network.org.uk. And in addition to creating that alumni group, what you will find is we've got other people on that network, such as members of the NHS Management Training Scheme, to start making those connections as well. At a regional level, it's important also to know that the National Leadership Council has established emerging leaders networks, and they're in all of your regions. So go and seek those out and make sure that you get involved with those as well. So really, just to finish with, I'd really like to wish you the best with all your fellowships and for life after that. Do make most of the space that you have already created for your leadership development. Because to be honest, no matter how busy you feel right now, the alumni present in the room, I'm sure, will no doubt tell you that you won't get this chance again. And that actually, balancing your ongoing commitments when you go back to clinical practice is a real challenge. I mean, from my point of view, I work in a specialty that's reasonably flexible, public health, and it's still really hard to squeeze it all in. So do make the most of now, but keep an eye on the future. I can't really commend to you enough the power of networking. Talk to people today, make those links. I'll be around, so do come and grab me. I'm happy to be one of your networking 5 a day. Many thanks again for your time and for coming along today and showing such enthusiasm. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.